Hi, this is Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center, and I want to welcome you to our conversation this evening on day one, preparing yourself. You know, I want to remind you guys, if you have not seen the video, the conversation that we had last month on April 12th in regards to the 21-day week, I'm going to recommend pause now. Don't even continue. Stop, go back. Go back and watch that video because it actually lays the foundation, the overview of what it is that this day one means in regards to the really big picture. It's the me time. It's the time that, it's all about me. It's all about filling me up. It's all about me taking care of my needs. It's all about preparing myself in order to be ready to go and serve, to be ready to do for others, to be ready to make sure that all of those things that need to take place during the course of our day are capable of being engaged. Because let me tell you, when we look at the different buckets throughout the course of our day that we're supposed to be filling, the me, the them, and the us, well, let me tell you, unless you fill up the me bucket first, the them and the us bucket never can be engaged the way they're supposed to. Now listen, if you're sitting right there right now and you're scratching your head and you're saying, well, I have no idea what the me, the them, and the us buckets happen to be, well, April 12th, 21-day week. Go back, watch it. Come back, watch this video. It will answer so many other questions. But if you have, well then listen, let's get ready. Because we're going to talk about preparing ourselves in regards to our day one. Now, let me introduce. This is all about how do I help myself? This is a big question. It's a question that I get asked all the time. A lot of times it comes from, the physical side of things of how can I help myself get well quicker? How can I help myself stay well longer? How can I help myself be able to get back to doing the things I love to do, to have that vitality, to be able to stretch myself and do new things? How can I help myself? Well, listen, if you want the answer to that question, that's what we're going to talk about. And I would love to say that the short video is going to answer all of those questions, but let me tell you, we're going to continue scratching the surface of this conversation because in the end, it is just so important to know how it is we can help ourselves. Because let's be frank, if in fact we're not helping ourselves, nobody else is going to. If in fact we're not doing the things that are going to bring and raise us to that level of optimal function, of optimal ability, then guess what? We can't rely upon anybody else to ensure that's going to happen. So I'm okay with you putting yourself first because I know in the service of others, there are times when you have to care for yourself first. See, in the end, listen, we're all going to be called to serve. We don't know when, we don't know where, we don't know what in what discipline we're going to be called to serve. But what I do know is if we are broken, it doesn't matter. Because we can't help ourselves, let alone help somebody else. So I'm hoping that as we have this conversation tonight, that as we walk through this simple process of helping ourselves, we get to bring ourselves to that place where we're able to actually help others. Now, if you've never seen this word before, yes, it's gas. I got gas. We should all have gas. And all joking aside, it is super important. I was taught this process a really long time ago. It's a process that I go through on a daily basis. I happen to do it in a different way than most others. I've done it a couple of different ways. But gas is really important. We all need it, we all should have it, and we should be making sure that we're engaging it on a daily basis. And what this stands for is gratitudes, actions, and services. Saying, well, what in the world does this have to do with my day one in preparing myself? Well, let's do a little background. See, oftentimes, we have to recognize how wonderfully blessed we are. And you know, if we're talking about day one of our 21-day week, well, that's that first time in the morning. That's a quiet time, you know, before all the kids get up, before you head off to work. It's that time that you get to settle in and make sure that you're meeting your needs. It's the quiet time of the day that you get to work inwardly on yourself. And when we look at, you know, this simple flow chart here, you know, the 21-day week, you know, one of the really big things, one of the really big parts of it is, you know, sometimes just simply journaling about things that are going on in your life. In fact, you know, the 21-day, the GAS process can be part of that journaling. You could do it, you know, in a lot of different ways, but, you know, the GAS process is a really simple and easy way of just making sure that you're acknowledging the things that are so important for you on that personal level. Now, when we look at GAS, it stands for gratitudes, actions, and services. So if we're writing things out, if we're sitting down and we're going to do this first thing in the morning, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a 3x5 card. Now, I used to grab a 3x5 card. Today, I take my cell phone, okay, and I do it on my cell phone. And I start. I write down 7 to 10 things that I'm grateful for. And what I'm grateful for, it might be different than what you're grateful for. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's your creator, maybe it's this day, your spouse, your family, your team, you know, people around you, your job, your pet. It could be so many different things. It could be simply the fact that you got to see the sunrise this morning. You got to bask in the beauty of watching those beams of light coming up and illuminating the horizon. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was just sitting there watching your children while they're still asleep. Silent, peaceful, just absolutely at peace. But I'm going to encourage you to look inwardly. In fact, you know, we could spend this entire time talking about just this one step, which is discovering the gratitudes. See, most of us, we sort of forget how wonderfully blessed we are. You know, the glass is always, let me think, half full. You know, it's not that it's, half empty. It's not that it's half full, it's half empty. We have so many problems. There's not enough time in the day. You know, I'm too busy. And yet, when we really sit back and think about it, we in America, even at the poverty level, make more than most individuals around the world. Most Americans, they live high above the standard in most every other country. I mean, no offense, but if you have air conditioning in your house, you're way above standard for most countries around the world. And yet, we look at it and we don't think twice about it. We look at it and we, you know, and I can still remember the comedian talking one day about the fact that, you know, the person beside him had dropped a phone call, you know, while they were on the plane, you know, flying across the Atlantic. They dropped a phone call as they were on a transatlantic flight. No offense, but, you know, I can still remember as a kid, you know, the rotary phone, you know, the party line. And to think that today, you know, we are so consumed with the fact that I've got this bad cell service. This is horrible. It's awful. Not that we have immediate connection with friends and family that are halfway around the world. We need to consider those things that we should be actually grateful for. And we should be able to come up with 7 to 10 of these really quickly. I mean, hey, listen, there is a whole process that I've done on goal setting and gratitudes, and, you know, where you can simply write down in the drill 100 different things that you have as a goal or you're grateful for, and it's tough, but it's doable. And when we really think about all of the things that we are blessed with, 7 to 10 of them should be really easy. Now, to set ourselves up for success, the next thing that we have to do is, well, we sort of have to plan out our day. Because I'm not sure if you've ever seen a boat out on the water when it's lost its rudder. You know, the wind is just blowing in one direction to the other, and well, when the wind changes direction, guess what happens to the direction of the boat? Well, it just starts going in a different direction, and it's wherever the wind blows. And you know, maybe you feel that way yourself. You start out on the day, and the next thing you know, you get a phone call, and boom, you're off and running to do something for somebody else. Oh, by the way, 10 minutes later, somebody else gives you a call, or this breaks down. And all of a sudden, this day that you had was now consumed by fires that somebody else created. Or maybe weren't necessarily immediate actions that you needed to take, but were sitting in front of you. See, one of the really important things for you and I is to recognize, as we have a bucket that can be filled, and we can only carry so many things in a bucket, which is really to say, hey, listen, you know what, during the course of our day, we can only pack so much in. And yeah, you know what, if we think of them like rocks, we take those really big rocks and we put them in our bucket, and that's great, we can get a couple big things in our buckets, but sooner or later, you can only put so many big items in the bucket. Maybe you could toss in a couple small, a couple medium stones. But that's it. Sooner or later, that bucket gets filled. See, and the problem is that if we don't prioritize those 2, 3, 4 things that are most important for us to accomplish during the course of the day, I only know one thing. The universe is going to bring stuff into our existence, into our time, to fill that void. It's going to consume that. And listen, you definitely, I'm sure, if you're watching this, you're probably shaking your head up and down. It's like, oh, absolutely. Those small little fires that the next thing you know, the kids have called, they need this or that, a friend has contacted you, all of a sudden something comes on TV, you're distracted, all of a sudden, on Facebook, you have to read a post and it takes you down a rabbit hole. Well, if you have listed those things that you need to do during the course of your day, you're capable then of creating those actions that, listen, once you've done them, that's great. You feel filled. You feel fulfilled during the course of your day, and you realize that you now have all that time set aside so you can do whatever else needs to be done to give yourself away to somebody else. But I'm going to encourage you. Think of your day like a bucket. Make sure that you're taking those 2, 3, 4 big items and putting them into the bucket first before you fill it in with all those little things, because otherwise those little things will fill up that bucket and you'll never be able to get the most important things in there. Now, the last thing in this gas drill is what's called service. This is a random act of kindness. This is that special thing that you just simply want to do for somebody else. And hey, listen, maybe your service, maybe this does not change for an entire week. I have friends of mine, they have what's called a random act of kindness. And during the course of their week, they're looking for somebody just to extend grace to, just to extend a gift to, that's never going to know about it, that's never going to understand where this came from, just that somebody cared enough to want to take care of something for them. And listen, I'm not going to tell you what this service can be. Sometimes it's just a phone call. Sometimes it is just picking up the phone when you're inside and just calling somebody you haven't talked to in such a long time. Maybe it's taking those few moments and writing out a card, a thank you card, something that we don't ever see in the mail anymore, that handwritten card that, it's almost an lost art form. Maybe it's just simply paying it forward. Paying for the cup of coffee for the person behind you in line and just simply walking away. Whatever it might be for you, I don't know. Big or small, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to leave $1,000, tip on the table for your waitress. I can't tell you how many times, I've watched and I've gotten to see somebody else's eyes light up over a cup of coffee being taken care of. Just knowing that, hey, listen, we extend kindness to others, it becomes infectious. And that's one of those hopes. As we go ahead and we get to serve others, as we get to share with others, that in turn, it becomes infectious. Because I'm going to tell you, when you do this drill and we write down your, do this gas card, you could do it on a 3x5 card. It's awesome. I used to do it that way for a really long time. I would fold it into thirds and I would stick it in my pocket so I could reflect on it during the course of the day. Now I do it with a whole bunch of other friends, so I'm doing it on my cell phone. I get to share that information amongst my friends group and with individuals that I have accountability with. And for some of you, maybe it's just Facebook. Maybe it's the proclamation on a medium like that of just simply sharing what you are grateful for. Does it make a difference? I don't know. I only recognize, as I think back on the starfish poem, and if you don't know what the starfish poem is, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to encourage you to, as soon as we're finished, to actually put that into Google One, starfish poem, and read it. Because the one thing I know, in the end, I don't know how far-reaching something like that's going to be for somebody else. But if it makes a difference to that one, it's all worthwhile. And here's the thing. As we walk through this simple process of just simply writing down the 7 to 10 gratitudes, writing down those 2 to 4 action steps, and then that one singular service, we're setting ourselves up. We're setting ourselves up for success. Because we know I'm blessed already. We know that we have a purpose in the course of our day that we're going to fulfill. And oh yeah, by the way, because we also recognize that we haven't been put here on this earth just for ourselves, but to help uplift others, we get to realize that it's on the front of our mind that we are going to look for those moments to help somebody else, that selfless service for somebody else in our community. We've set our day up. We've set our day up right from hello, that day one period of time. So I'm going to encourage you, write it out. I'm going to ask you one of those really big things of making sure that you're touching base with one of your friends and asking them to do it with you. Listen, this is not just one of those things that holds true for what we're talking about right now, but whether we're talking about athletics or any other endeavor, if we want to achieve things, if we want to raise the level of success, we're going to do one thing. We're going to ask somebody else to come along with us in the journey. And we're going to share it. We're going to proclaim what it is that we're doing and share it with somebody else and be vulnerable in the moment to make sure that they're holding us accountable. Because let me tell you, without accountability, sooner or later, each and every one of us out there is going to stumble. But here's the great thing. By having that accountability partner, you have that individual beside you that's going to reach down, pull you back up again, and help to make sure that you maintain that course. So that in the end, by serving yourself and filling those needs, you're capable then of helping somebody else. Because let me tell you, when you walk a path with an accountability partner, that means just like they help to raise you up, you help to raise them up at some point or another. Listen, if you're inclined, share this. Share your gas card with us, okay? You could just simply, if you want to send a copy of it to the Limerick Chiropractic info email address, you feel free, all right? I would love to be part of that group for you to help you make sure that you maintain accountability. But listen, here's the thing. There are so many people, they've never heard of this gastro. They have no idea what this is. You say gas to them and they're like, really? Where? You want to say, excuse me? You know, all joking aside. I'm going to ask you to do one thing tonight. Share. Not for me. I know how to do this. You've heard this information. You can go back and you can watch it again. You can certainly tap me on the shoulder to ask for help of, am I doing this properly? But you have people in your friends group. They don't know what you know. They don't know how impactful that is to make sure that they're doing things in order to help themselves, whether it's an exercise like this, whether it's a physical exercise like stretching our muscles and working out, whether it's feeding our mind or journaling. There are people in your friends group, they don't know. I'm going to encourage you to share this on your Facebook page. Share it with others. Leave me a comment. If you have a question, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you took away from this conversation tonight and who you might want to share this with. As always, I encourage you to leave your comments so that, you know what, we can continue this conversation, because in the end, I will tell you, this conversation doesn't stop with this workshop. This conversation continues. As always, it was a great pleasure sharing this with you tonight. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.